Dear God, I got one question. I need to know, do revolutionaries go to heaven? And if so, may their legacies last forever and their seeds grow. Tell them that we love them so and never let them die slow. It's like we cursed to be born black. We was kings and queens, now look where we at. I know it won't be long before we take it back. I just hope I live long enough to see it happen, and that's a fact. Cause one thing when you pro-black, you might love your people, but they may not love you back. For more than 400 years, we've been under attack. We survived slavery and then they gave us crack. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? 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 I wanna know. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? I hope so. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? I wanna know. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? I hope.
Peace, Queen.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I'm never late. I never miss anything. She messed it up.
No, it's all good.
I apologize. No, it's not, because I don't like wasting people's time, and that's not how I get down. So I apologize.
That's why I was good. I truly appreciate you. Okay. Right. I'm glad I called you. Thank you. How you feeling? You good?
I'm good. It's a new year. I'm ready for new stuff. Let's get it.
All right, let's get right into it. Peace and blessings, family. Thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of Taye Speaks. We got a very special guest in the house, very creative, very artistic, very beautiful, very talented, hardworking. Welcome to the show, Queen. For the viewers who may not know who you are, let them know what your name is and where you're from.
Well, Taye, first of all, let me say thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Top of the year. Let's get it started. Most recognizable, I think people know me as the girl dancing on Queen Latifah's show, Living Single. They know me from being one of the only female host of Rap City on BET, and having danced with everybody and their mother, from Michael Jackson to Whitney Houston, Bobby Brown, Heavy D, Mary J. Blige, and choreographing. And for those in present time in radio, especially in LA and New York. So.
Wow. I want to tell you, very inspiring. You accomplished so many things. My first introduction to you was Rap City, of course, but I just want to kind of go back to the beginning. When did you decide that you were going to dance as a career? You were going to teach people. When did you develop that passion?
Well, it really happened senior year in college. I went to Springfield College in Massachusetts on a full gymnastics scholarship. So when you look at like Dominique Dawes and Simone Biles, I was that girl. I was literally since the age of 10 doing gymnastics. So I went on a full scholarship, and you can only compete for 4 years in NCAA as far as gymnastics. And I got into a 5-year master's program for sports medicine. But by like senior year, I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do? And then music videos came out, and it was Janet Jackson and Paula Abdul and Jody Watley and Vanessa Williams, and not being in my dorm room, like I could do that. They can't do, And so I was like, all right, I'm going back to New York when I get out of college. And I just didn't want to wait another year. So I got my bachelor's. I didn't get my master's, and got to New York. And literally the first auditions that I started to get, I booked everything, and I was doing off Broadway. Got my first tour like within 5 months after graduation, and I never had to look back.
Wow, that's amazing. Man, my next question, I guess, would be coming from New York or coming from a lot of urban areas. How did you get into gymnastics? Because it's not something that's easily accessible. Like, what led you to that?
Yeah, I was a tom girl growing up. And I got, still to this day, I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I got like mad energy, and I can't keep still. And I would tear all the furniture up in my mother's house. But like in any hood, regardless, you see people in the park, whether it's on the grass or the mattress in the alley, teaching themselves backflips. And I was that chick. I was like cartwheels and walkovers and climbing trees. And I used to hang out with a bunch of guys. So I was as athletic as they were. And so my mom put me into a trampoline class just to like keep me off the streets. And I was a latchkey child, as most New Yorkers know what that is. When your parents usually work like 2 and 3 jobs, you kind of have to wear the key around your neck, let yourself in. They leave food for you. You got to do your homework. You're very independent at a very young age. So taking the train and the bus and all that stuff. So she wanted to keep me closer to her job. She was a nurse. So she put me in a YMCA. And within a month of being on the trampoline, the guy was like, she needs to be in a gymnastic class. And he referred me to another YMCA, and they took hold of me, really just kind of like strengthened all the basics, because I came in with a lot of sloppy tricks, and they realized I had potential. And within a year, I was competing in national competition. And so hats off to my mom, because gymnastics is not a cheap sport. And the only way, of course, as most Black mothers would say, well, if your grades ain't right, well, then that goes away. So my grades are on point, and the gymnastics stayed. And I became, within a year, I was in national competitions. I was regional champion, state champion, and all that other stuff. And so that's how it happened.
Wow, big shout out to your mom. Definitely. That's a blessing. But shout out to you as well, because you excelled in it. And gymnasts, they got to be like in top shape. You talking about just being a participant, but you actually being a champion and being a competitor at it. Wow, that's a lot of hard work that you put into that, obviously.
Yes, it's 4 or 5 hours a day, just like anybody who's really on a sports team, whether it's basketball, baseball, soccer. You're putting in 4 or 5 hours a day, probably 5 to 6 days a week. Usually the weekends are most of your competitions and stuff. And that kind of was my whole life. And then when it transferred into dancing, that's really what it was too. I'd be in dance rehearsals for weeks and weeks at a time, preparing for tours and music videos. So that was like another decade or so of my life after, college. So.
Okay. That's what's up. What was your first big music video that you got into?
My first big music video that people probably wouldn't know about, it was a group called On Top. And if you remember, like in the early 90s, house music was really big. And so that was when like Jomanda was out, and Jay Williams was a recording artist who was my first artist that I ever danced for and toured with. He had a huge house record called Sweat. But my first mainstream music video, I believe, was Around the Way Girl, I
Oh,
think.
LL.
Yeah, LL's Around the Way Girl, I think, was like the biggest of them all.
Wow.
I had done stuff for like Nice and Smooth and Cool Mo D, but I think of the biggest, and I can't remember the actual timeline, but Around the Way Girl, I think, was probably maybe the biggest. I got to look at the year.
Wow, that's the jam. I'm gonna have to go back and check that one out for sure. That's what's up.